Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to give this just brief webinar um, about the phenomenon of ETs. And you can only begin to understand this when you include um, the element of consciousness, particularly higher states of consciousness. We have to include it if we ever want to understand the phenomenon of ETs. So that's the topic today. And I would like to uh, go along in the following way. First, I established very briefly a baseline so that everybody is on the same page, because there's so many different perspectives on this whole thing. And I just bring in what has been established, let's say. And this is brief. And from the baseline, we take off. We really take off from there. And we look at the perspective of what kind of ETs are out there, how can you actually experience it, and different ways to do so, and even connect. And you might find some things coming as a surprise. Um, I, I have to say, um, I, I got constant downloads through the night. So uh, I dare say we are not alone here. It's a bit a crowded thing, environment here at the moment. Anyway, let's get started. Baseline. Yes, at the end, question answers. If people have questions, perhaps relating to their own experiences, what that means, what to read from this, etc. Just let me know at the end. So that is how I would like to proceed. Now let's start. Um, Extraterrestrial, as per definition, is some being that is not from this earth. This means, on one hand, that beings of this earth can be any beings above surface or below surface. So having established that, I leave it at that. We don't go further there. But what we refer right now is beings not of this earth as of now. So um, let's take it from there. This is nothing new. Ancient cultures have reported on the ET phenomenon millennia ago, hundreds of years ago, all over the world. This is not really something new. It has been established. Various indigenous tribes actually trace their ancestry to certain ET groups as well. It's in their songs, it is in their uh, you could say creation stories that they pass on from generation to generation, and it's still there in their memories. So that's, on one hand, it's nothing new. You find it in the religions, in the different religions as well. You find it in the Japanese cultures, you find it in the ancient Vedic cultures, you find it in other religions as well. So, having said all of that, the let's move forward to today's times, more or less, whatever today's times, last 50 or 100 years. ET sightings, or let's say UFO sightings, um, is nowadays is nothing special any longer. In the past, this was debated as, oh, is this real or is it not real? While a lot of these sightings might be related to natural phenomena in the sky, many have been established as of unknown origin worldwide. So this is nothing nowadays that is even being disputed. If you look at polls in different countries, majority of the population anyway has come to the conclusion, yes, ETs must exist, and they have also visited Earth as well. So that in its own right is established. So where do we go from here as a next? Now, the other aspect, and I don't want to dwell in this call on this much because it really brings us to a completely different direction. Um, some of um, some of these sightings have led to contact in various ways, and there are multiple witness statements in different countries from credible sources, be it military, be it government, be it academics, be it anybody in the street that can corroborate this. Um, there have been enough witness accounts of actual contact of various types of beings. But this also has led to various types of research in the military in different countries. And naturally in the hope to gain a better understanding of how did these people get here. So what we can say is, as of now, yes, reverse engineered technologies have been developed. I don't want to go there right now. This would really distract us from what we are aiming at. And what we see in the sky nowadays could be actually man-made vehicles, non-official devices that fly. Non-official means not developed with official science, or it could be really ET uh, ships that come from somewhere else. So there you go. A mere sighting in the sky is not enough. It would require something else to establish where is this coming from, and that, of course, is in many ways for a normal observer, it's not doable because he's on the ground, he just sees it. How can he establish that this is from, from a man-made origin, or is it not? Just by seeing it, it would not be possible. I throw this in here just to leave it at that. Yes, that exists too. But we don't want to go further in this. We focus purely on actual ET phenomena. So the other aspect is that needs to be considered, and this is very interesting with the religions. Internally, they have to deal or have started to look at what if there are ET races? How does that affect actually the faith, be it Catholic faith or other? How does that affect this? And the relevant priests, theologians, and others, they have internal discussions about this because some adjustments in their belief system would need to happen. In fact, also some preparedness of how to communicate this to their own followers would have to happen. Like, how do they explain this from a quote religious perspective? So this process has actually started in different groupings. So this is something that some changes are seen. Yes, this can happen, that it becomes that it comes into the open, that the ET phenomena is real in the open, and how do we as representatives of religions deal with this, and how do we communicate this to our followers? So this is in preparation as of now. So for what you can say is, and this brings me almost to the end of this baseline so that we are on the same page, when this comes out more into the open, this will challenge perspectives about reality. It will challenge perspectives about life and the meaning of life and spirituality. And this is why it has a potentially disruptive energy for the current status quo, how life is lived on this earth in different countries. It's like you could say humans live like in a cocoon, but life out there, it's full of life out there. And at some point, the egg opens, the egg, that cocoon here has to open. And the question is how to prepare humans for this. So this is, we can say, this is the baseline. This is where we are at. Now let's go further. From here, we really take off. When actually this idea for this webinar came up, this was actually amongst practitioners of sacred crystal sound method, how they treat people with their own voice and crystals, and this is a special method. And they had some experiences, and there were some questions, and I said, okay, why don't we do a separate webinar on this? But then other people wanted to join, so we opened it up. The element of consciousness is key to this, to understand better the whole phenomenon. First of all, it raises the question, if ETs or ET ships really come here, let's talk only of the 3D domain, not yet in the higher dimensional domain. We will go to the higher dimensional domain in a moment. But let's say if an ET ship comes here, the first question is, how did they get here? It cannot be with light speed. It's just too slow. Why? Because the closest stars are multiple of light years away, and with that kind of speed, sublight speeds, it just takes too long. It's just too slow, literally. So they come differently. They arrive here differently. But that directly challenges call this the physics that is taught at universities. It directly challenges that, because they use a mechanism by which they come here that is not understood, that is not known. And this brings in the idea of, you could say, higher dimensional space, or the dimensional space. What they do is they flip into another dimension, and then it's as if they fold space, and then they come to a desired place almost instantly, depending. There's maybe a time lag, tiny, depends where this thing is. And then they you could say, rematerialize in 3D space again. So this is how they manage to cross from the 3D perspective big distances. And this is something that raises the question, well, if there's multiple dimensional space, is there also life out there? Yes, of course. So the worldview starts to get gradually bigger and bigger, and the worldview that has been commonly held gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So this egg has to crack open. Now, it also challenges the question of, is the body purely, the human body, is it purely just physical, or is it something else too? And in the alternative healing sector, this is naturally something that everybody would say, oh yes, we are more than just the physical aspect of body. We have an energy body, we can do energy healing, which in its own right is an emerging medical field as well. So from that perspective, everybody would agree, yes, we have an energy body, there's something subtle to the body. And we aim to balance that layer, which then translates into the physical layer. So that is what's commonly in the alternative treatments in that field, that belief is held. And that is quite all right, actually. Um, Now, this brings me to the next point, and that has to do with consciousness states. If we have a subtle body, can we experience this more directly, like consciously? And the answer is yes. There are numerous traditions in the world. It's nothing new again. It has been in the old days. That has that ancient civilizations have reported on this in different areas of the planet. You can experience your subtle body. It has other names: astral body, light body. You can give it different names. Um, you can experience it, and you can go places as well. Not only that, you can know things that you could not with normal physical sensory apparatus. You can know things that normally you could not. So you could say it opens the box of what what previously was described as paranormal skills, or you could say inner sensing. It opens up that box that has been not looked at in conventional education. This is not being looked at, and it's not encouraged either. But it needs to be included in this discussion, because you will understand better the ET phenomenon as well. So Dreamtime, for example, is the name that the Aboriginal natives in Australia call it. They go into dreamtime. They can communicate with each other thousands of kilometers apart. It's a common ability in the different groups there. Now, others may call this differently. In the recent years, this has been also called remote viewing. There have been various experiments done, inspired by some people in the US. Ingo Swann was one of them. And protocols have been developed how to gain the ability of remote viewing. And meaning seeing objects at a distance, seeing, feeling, sensing objects at a distance that you could not with your physical senses when you are sitting in one room and the object is perhaps 1,000 kilometers away. So that is also described as remote viewing, and there are protocols for this to develop. Now, the other is out-of-body experience. Out-of-body experience, some people have it naturally, some people have taught it. There are different schools on this. It goes in a similar direction, but in this case, the person experiences a temporal disassociation from the physical body, meaning literally the perspective shifts out of the body, and they would be able to seemingly so completely effortless travel distances with their, call this, light body. And there are different proponents to this, and they have developed methods how to do that, how to experience it, and how to get back to the body. You still need to get back. You're never completely disassociated with your body. So that's another approach to experience your subtle body. So as you see, there are already various approaches in this. And uh, I give you a brief story that one person mentions. Um, this came originally from a UFO researcher called Dr. Greer, Stephen Greer. He had a person come to him, and this person had experienced something very puzzling in this ET phenomenon, in this ET world, let's say. Um, he uh, he learned the methods from Rosicrucians. How to come out of the body took him many years to get to there. Get out of the body and then experience that he can actually be alive without physical body, you could say. That's a critical experience. It removes a lot of fear. So in his case, finally he succeeded and he was going out of the body and he shoots up. He shoots up into the sky. So he starts to see his bed and he starts to see, goes through the roof, he sees the house from above, and he keeps going up into sky, into sky, into sky. So he sees his place, it's getting smaller, he keeps going up. And as he goes up, he's quite far up already. And he sees, he starts to see Earth has a curvature. So that means he's quite already going up. And suddenly he bumps into something. He bumps into something and he was completely puzzled. And in fact, it not only bumps into something, it's as if he went through something invisible. And he looked into an ET ship. Literally, he bumped into some ET ship. And as he bumped into, he went through the hull of the ship. And he looked inside, accidentally looks, and there are some ETs, humanoid in shape. They looked like they turned around and they looked at him. And he got this impression from them that he somehow must have, how did he phrase this? That he somehow must have violated some cosmic etiquette. Like some no, don't do that, like this. So because they looked and said, what are you doing here? Watch where you're going. That's the impression he got. But on his end, he was so shocked. He was totally shocked. It instantly put him back into his physical body, because he didn't anticipate such an experience. And for some years he couldn't resolve this. He said, what happened there? And so he asked Dr. Greer, and if he has some view on this. And Dr. Greer told him what happened was that with your subtle body, you were approaching an object that temporarily was in that same vibrational field or space. It was holding a very similar vibrational frequency or vibrational pattern. So that is why they could actually feel each other. It's like they can feel each other because they are in that same vibrational pattern. So that is why he could bump into something, but it's not experienced as solid as here. But yet it was a sense of bumping, and he kind of penetrated through. It didn't hurt him or anything. There's no such thing there. It just happened that way. And that seemingly he did breach some kind of social etiquette by just bumping into a ship and go and look. And that nothing comes from this. So this man was very happy because finally somebody explained a bit more about consciousness, a bit more about body and subtle body. So this is a typical out-of-body experience, and naturally not everybody would have that kind of exotic experience, but in this case it was relating to the ET phenomenon. Now, let's go further than that. When we talk about different types of universes, the 3D, and then there are subtler ones, you can also give them the name of astral realms, different layers within there. You can see this is getting quickly more complex when we relate to the ET phenomenon, because what kind of ETs are you talking about? There's such a variety. They may live in astral realms that are very subtle. They might not even approach 3D realm. You have others that might live a bit more in more, you could say, more individualized, more concrete forms of the astral realm. And then you have those ETs that live actually in the 3D universe. So you have different types. And what about what the religions call angels, guardian angels, this angel, that angel? What about those? Where do they live? It references the same space. These are subtle fields or realms. So in a wider sense, you could also call them, quote, ETs. So that makes this whole field a bit more convoluted, because there are so many types of beings that can live in the universe on different layers. Now, if we focus on the 3D ETs, you have different types of ETs that are at a different level of advancement. But what do they share in common? The common denominator is consciousness that is sufficiently advanced to understand that all of life is interconnected, not separate, and that you can move through layers of life, layers of expression, be it subtle or gross. And they have developed technologies, if they are technology-oriented civilizations, to do that. And they may come with spaceships to different places, explore the 3D universe, you could say. While others have not developed into that direction technologically, but they may not need this either. They can travel without. Remember, if you use your subtle body, you can go anywhere. So maybe they have developed a state of awareness that can freely command into which layer they want to go with their body, what layers of reality they want to experience. Physical, astral realms, subtler astral realms. There are also these civilizations that have developed this ability. So this means that when one talks of ET civilizations, there are myriad types of civilizations and different forms and expressions. It's bewildering. So when we approach this further, what does that mean for us as humans? Then it simply means we have to begin to handle our own consciousness sufficiently enough to be able to even fathom what we deal with when we have an experience. Otherwise, we have no clue what our senses give us. So What does that mean for us? First of all, we must have the experience and the understanding that all life is an expression of one source, one infinite cosmic source, and from which everything is, you could say, expressed or projected. And the projection is, again, it could be 3D or it could be subtler. You need to have that kind of world view to hold all of this together, and that is a beginning. And this is also defined as the threshold. It's like a threshold of, you could say, is a civilization, I don't want to say this in a judgmental way, but for the lack of other words, is this civilization primitive or is it civilized? Civilized means they have experienced their own source of awareness that gives them the experience that all life is naturally connected as one. That's the common basis in the universe of all sufficiently advanced civilizations. They all share that basis. They may themselves, as a civilization, have different expressions, but this is what they share, all of them. This is a key. Why? Because when you experience this, you are naturally also connected to all life that there is, because you experience the source. From there, you can start to develop the skills to experience and communicate with other life forms. So let's look at communication. How do civilizations out there even communicate with each other? It's not sequential as we as humans have developed languages, different languages, Spanish, English, French, German, etc. It's not like this. That is, you could say, while in itself this can be beautiful and it can be poetically expressed, it's still an early stage of development of communication. The future is telepathic. There's no doubt about this. Telepathic can encompass much more information in a shorter time and much more complete, encompassing all the sensory experiences as well and the emotional states as well, all packed in one. Now, there are stages of telepathic communication that civilization transitions through. There are stages, it comes in stages. And all the ones of you who are mothers who have had a child will tell that they have had this experience that they are as if telepathically connected to their child. They know instantly when the child is not doing well. They know that the child needs something. There's this sense of knowing because they are deeply connected. That's an early stage of telepathy. It can go also the other way, that the child instantly feels when the mother is happy or not. It's an early stage of telepathy. So a civilization starts to transition into more telepathic communication as they connect, as the individuals connect more with their inner source of silence, silence that connects with all life. And as it does, the abilities, you could say higher sensory abilities, begin to awaken. One of it is the sense of, you could say, reading or experiencing all the life forms around you. That can have its expression also with animals or plants, that you can have forms of communication with them. And there are these so-called animal communication courses. They foster this ability to actually being able to connect with that type of life form. Naturally not human. Now, this is a critical key because this is the way you can possibly communicate with ETs. Because you don't need to have translation mechanisms. Telepathic, let's call it language, is universal. It's not flavored in Spanish, French, and so on. It is directly at the source of form of or the idea. And from there, that is being transmitted and universally understood. Now, let's take this further. Telepathy. Telepathy goes further. Telepathy can include, let's say, if you want to describe to somebody that you are on a market square and you look around and you want to communicate this to a person, all the information around the market, you could say. Okay, so that's a lot of information actually, because it includes all the people in the market. It includes whoever walks around. It's like a movie. So the telepathic information can be in the form of visual impressions. It can be in the form of auditory. It can be in the form of information about the actors in it, all at once in one go. It's like one information package. Now you could imagine that if somebody receives this could be potentially overwhelming the brain, or it could be overwhelming the person. It's too much that flows in. And when that happens, this can lead to even a breakdown that the person temporarily fades. It's a sensory overload. And then they wake up, what happened? So what you have in this realm with ET contact, you have with different civilizations, you have ETs that are specialized in communicating with life forms that are not proficient yet with telepathy. And they know not to overload a certain species in this form. So they know that others would just overload the person because they are not understanding that this is a delicate process, that a species need to be approached step by step into this skill, you could say. Other species, they just know that and they communicate in a very delicate way with those species that don't know telepathy. So telepathy is that next step that will come. Now you can imagine that in the current world situation, telepathy is not necessarily a desired skill by many agencies in the world, because then there are no secrets potentially. So anybody who wants to keep secrets is not really interested that this type of skill gets developed. Nevertheless, this is something that is coming. What does that mean for you? If a contact occurs, then this has a telepathic component to it. It has a telepathic component to it. We go into the nature of contact in a moment, but I wanted to bring out this aspect of communication that is really important to understand, because only through this you can understand better, again, the ET phenomenon. They're not going to come and talk to you in English or in French or in Spanish. And you say, you have an Argentinian accent. Where are you from? It's not like this. So now the brain physiology may translate this for you into your language that you think in. Yes. But the information that gets first received by the brain is like the brain physiology is like a receiver device, translation device. So that information package that comes gets translated and you will understand it with your mind then. This is how it works. Now, what is interesting is for those who have experienced trance-like states, like in hypnosis, and some of you did, um, they have had in this form ET experiences. And as they did, they understood them in, in that hypnosis session. And they could see worlds, they could see places, they could see ETs, whatever it was. How is that possible? Again, it's consciousness. It's this expanded state, altered state of awareness that allows you to quote remote view whatever the situation or the place is you're supposed to view. It's just modulating the receiver, the translation device, brain physiology. And it can be a 3D experience, meaning you view a world in the 3D universe. But it could be also something higher D. Doesn't matter, consciousness, your consciousness field traverses all expression of reality, from subtle to gross. You can peek into any layer of reality. That is why you can, in fact, experience or witness angel-like beings, light beings. You couldn't otherwise. So again, we talk about the element of consciousness here. That is very crucial. And we need to learn to handle our own consciousness so we are actually being better prepared to understand what we are dealing with when we have an experience. So let's move to the next. We talked about communication. Let's move to the next. And mind you, this is all a bit rushed. We go through this a bit rushed, but this is just to give you an entry. It's not meant to be 4 hours long. So let's move further. Next step is your experiences, types of experiences that you may have, and that perhaps your clients may have. You need to better understand and classify them. So experiences can be made with the physical senses. Yes, like you see a UFO somewhere in the sky. And let's assume it's not man-made, it has come. And then you can say, yes, I see it with my physical eyes. And you get a certain feeling for it. So that's one type of experience. Or it could be in, of a physical nature that they land and there's actual communication going on, likely telepathic. So that's in the physical realm. That's one way with waking state awareness that you could possibly have an experience with ETs. The other is you are in an altered state of awareness, and I touched upon hypnosis, that in the hypnosis you're potentially seeing things that you could not with the physical eyes, but you are seeing things nevertheless because you're shown specific events that happened. So in distant places also. So through altered states of awareness, you can have ET experience. Remote viewing is another, you could say, modulated state of awareness that can give you the experience of contact. Then we talked about those who experience their subtle body and move it as if they move out and go places. They may also have their share in this way of meeting all the types of beings. So these are the basic forms of contact you can have. And I didn't touch upon dream state, but even in dream state, you can have it. It's an altered awareness state. It's a changed, it's its own, you could say, consciousness state. So as you see, your consciousness is always at the center of it. And your consciousness can, you, as if, vibrate into different experiential realms. And through this, you can have experience with other life forms. So handle your consciousness again helps you to better command this and understand this phenomenon. Now, let's talk of another aspect, and that is, I keep saying also with clients that come for Dolores Cannon sessions, Dolores Cannon hypnosis sessions, I tell them, you are an eternal being, you are immortal, and you have currently a human experience. That's a standard thing. Now, if we are currently having a human experience, what does that mean, what we had before? If we are eternal, if our soul is eternal, religions talk of eternal nature of the soul, okay, then we must have lived quite long before. Well, from that perspective, every single person has that experience of having an ET life form as well. Now, let that sink in. You're not just humans. You must have had some other life experiences as well, seemingly so in the past. If time ever was linear, it's not. So this means this is actually not really something extraordinary to have an ET experience in the present human body. Why? Because you have had or lived many times ET lives as well. Why? You're immortal. You've had many lives before. So that puts a whole lot of different perspective to this whole thing. It could even mean you meet some kind of family, friends, tribe that are not in human form. And now that raises an interesting thing. And that is, some people feel affinity with certain ET civilizations that, let's say, a bit more known ones in the field, or let's say the ones that are more named, Pleiadians, Syrians, and others, Orions, beautiful Orions. They're not living 3D. So it's like relating to some memory field in you that connects you with this group, or with that group, or that group, or groups that don't even have names because they don't have human names yet. Everybody has that, whether they are consciously aware of it or not, because they are immortal. So some have certain affinities to this group or that group because they access certain memory fields. Now, guess what? If a person has that, an affinity to a certain group, and then in the physical body of a human, they have some ET experience, who would want to visit them? It's most likely their group. It's most likely their group that visits them, because every person who incarnates here has a certain, you could say, life purpose or mission. And these groupings, if they are involved with this earth affair, they will help you. They will help you. So this means if this happens, welcome it, because your group, as simple as that. And then you can actually access more information and more understanding. So that is one important aspect. They might not give you more information. On the other hand, perhaps this will be too distracting to your actual life purpose. That can happen too. If that is the case, it will come in time when it is not disturbing you any longer. And then it comes and you know it, okay, yes, I have done this and this, I have experienced this and this planet. It's okay, but I'm now here, now focus here. If it's like this on the level of maturity, then you can access the information, whatever you um, whatever you resonated with before. So again, central key is consciousness. So if somebody comes to you as practitioner and tells you about some ET experiences, there's another form, and that is so-called abductions. But abductions can be misunderstood. And we need to address this briefly, and then I open up the round for questions. Abductions is a phenomenon that has two aspects. One is somebody has an experience with the ET group, but the way it happens is to not show to that person that the interaction has occurred because it is too disruptive for their life, too disruptive for their belief system, but they are still member of that other group too. As I mentioned before, you resonate with certain groups. Maybe they have checked in on the person. Maybe they have volunteered as part of that group to come here for a certain task. That's also possible. And they are in constant communication with each other. You don't know. But you can imagine that, let's say, as for the sake of example, somebody in the 1950s has an ET experience and they just lose memory. They see the ET ship very close and they lose memory. And then they get back into their normal awareness state, and perhaps they are sitting in the car and they say, man, what did I do in these 3 hours? It just means that that type of event was not supposed to be shown to him. It's too disruptive, but it was still necessary. Perhaps there was something to adjust in the body. It could be millions of reasons. So this is one type of abduction experience. Now you can imagine if a person in the physical body holds a lot of fear of life, they associate the unknown with fear. So they are afraid of this, of abduction experience. They are totally afraid of this. And they will say, this is against my will. On the surface, it appears like this. But hypnosis sessions may reveal that actually he was there and these were his friends, but not in his waking state. So that complicates the situation. So abduction experiences are reported often in the form that it is flavored with a fear layer, And that has to do directly with the person in terms of how much fear do they hold in themselves in life. And it's immediately translated into events when they face the unknown. Immediately the fear comes up and taints, you could say, the experience. So that I needed to mention because you may have clients that pop up in this way, so that you understand that better. Now, what we see is with this, there are different types of ET experiences possible, and they may come across your path. But there is something else still. If we look at higher states of awareness, and we say there's a oneness perspective, that actually there is source that projects all life for the sake of experiencing itself, a oneness perspective, then that means all the ET experiences, all these different realms, these worlds, these subtler worlds, astral realms, are projections too. Everything is a projection. And you walk through those projections. That's all. But there is something eternal underlying. If you connect with that, if this is like, it's like it acts like as an anchor, you never get lost, because that is the source of everything. So enlivening that source within you, that state of awareness where you have that direct experience of presence that is the source of all projections. You can never get lost. If ever you have an experience going into different dimensional space, you know you are at home at the basis of it. You can never get lost. That means you eliminate fear. And that directly will flavor the type of experience you may make. So that is another aspect why it is important to include the element of consciousness in this whole discussion and higher states of consciousness. So with this kind of quick roundabout, I'm sure this may have raised questions here and there. And this was just very quickly to give another perspective to this whole discussion, and it may re-emerge again and again. But you need to understand we cannot possibly understand the ET phenomenon from just a purely 3D perspective of Star Wars and Star Trek. This is merely projection from, you could say, cowboy movies into space. And then you have these statements, kick alien butt, the good versus the bad. This is just an extension of fear that has been the debate or working out, discussed, the good versus the bad. In other areas, it's that 3D type of consciousness that is not having had the experience of oneness. Only, you could say, duality. And when there's no experience of oneness and only experience of duality, which means me and the world, there's a gap. At the same time, there's fear. And when there's fear, you have immediately the good and the bad. So all these movies is just an expression of that fear state. So having said that, some of you had experiences, and either through hypnosis sessions or either through dreamlike states, whatever it was. If you have any questions regarding this, or if you would like to share it, let me know. We could open this up for a few questions. Would that be okay? And Cindy, I think the people would need to unmute if they have a question. Don't forget, otherwise we don't hear it. So perhaps in the meantime, I would like to ask the round, anyone had experiences in this realm, direct experience, either through dreamlike states or through hypnosis states or other? And if you did, how did it feel? Was that a familiar feel, or did you feel this is totally new, or it's like I don't know what to do with this? Maybe we could enter it in this way.
Hi, Patrick.
Yes, Ruth.
Hi.
How are you?
Fine. I just want to ask you because many times I had these dreams that I see to the sky, and then I see this spaceship, a huge spaceship, and then I saw the kind of sphere come down to my house and just get into my living room and just go this way and just like a few minutes and then goes back to the spaceship. And other dreams, I still looking at the sky, and I see some kind of geometry figures.
Now the last part we didn't hear.
And functions. Pardon me?
The last
What?
part I didn't hear. You said geometry figures, and then.
Oh yes, I have that's kind of dreams that I see the skies and I see those figures in the skies, and I don't know, it's kind of codes or something like that. And sometimes in meditate, when I meditate, I can hear kind of language that I don't know how to translate that, but sometimes I can feel peace, and I can feel that they're trying to tell me something, but my soul recognize the language, but I don't know in Spanish what that means. But I can feel peace, and I can feel they're trying to tell me something. So I ask them to please tell me in the language that I can understand, because I know my soul recognizes that language, but I don't know how to translate that.
And then when you ask, do you get a translation?
Sometimes I can feel peace, and I can feel my soul is recognizing that language, but I don't know how to translate it in Spanish.
So what is the question?
The question is, how can I do to translate that kind of language?
Yes. All right. So, number one, this comes to you to remind you of your tribe. That's number one. Number two, it's like to enliven the memory that you're not getting lost in this life into some functions. You still have some other purpose in life. That's one of the reasons why these groups try to maintain contact with those humans that have, you could say previously or in parallel, whatever, um, that connection with an ET group. But when they enter human life, they forget everything. So this means they don't even remember their group. They don't remember anything. They just are in a human life and identified with it in the 3D, and they go through their daily routine. And they might entirely forget what they actually came for. So That's one of the reasons why these groups try to keep a connection, so that somehow a memory is being constantly enlivened, so that not total forgetting is taking place. So what happens in your case is that's one function of it. They say, we are here with you. We know you are in your life and there are challenges, but we are there. So that's one function. It's not so critical, the content itself of what that vibrational code is sent to you in, and your brain translates it as some, let's say, form of language. It's a natural habit of the brain to translate energy patterns, decoding it as a form of communication. What does the brain know? Language, so it must be sequential. Because that's how we are trained, that's how we grew up. Language must be sequential. So it's a habit of the brain to decode this as a sequential frequency pattern, but we say, but this I have never heard. What does this mean? So we say this. Number one, it's just to keep the memory alive that yes, you have that connection. Number two, how to begin communication, like a two-way communication with that group, is through the heart. Telepathy starts there. Telepathy, the form of communication of, you could say, from consciousness to consciousness, starts there. Now, how do you approach this? Let's say you have in that dream or in that kind of altered state, this experience, they are here, and then there's something coming through, and the brain habitually translates this into a language that one cannot decipher, like a series of codes. What you can do is this: you go into your heart, and within your heart, you connect with the origin of that code. The origin of that code is somebody has sent the code, you could say. Somebody has projected it towards you. Let's call it that way. Your intent in consciousness is from the heart. It's like connect to the sender. Let's call it the sender. Connect to the sender. Don't be afraid. Begin to connect with the sender from the heart. It's as if you form a bridge. A bridge of what? Of love and embrace. That's the universal greeting code. Love and embrace. That's the universal greeting code. So start with that. Once you begin to realize there's some kind of impulse coming back from this as you greet, as you embrace, you have opened the door of communication. That does not require that sequential, you bypass that. You bypass that frequency code that is too hard to translate. There is a way, though, you could still go there too, but we say go for the direct one. Go for the direct one, go to the originator, the sender. Connect. But truly mean it in the heart. It only works then. You begin to develop this capacity. The more you feel out the sender, it's like, you could say, tuning into that radio station, tuning into that frequency field. The more you begin to resonate with that field, the more information flows. It's available then. It's like the door opens, it's all there. So this means, and this is an attunement step that takes a bit of time and practice, but keep doing it. Keep doing it. As soon as the experience comes in, it's like an invitation. Enter the dialogue, enter the connection, enter the connection with the heart, form the bridge, and just feel the sender and embrace and love. and start from there. You will be guided intuitively what to do next after that. And little by little, you will begin to understand what comes back telepathically, what comes back to you, what streams back to you. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you very much. Now I understand. I'm going to start doing that.
Beautiful. It's a wonderful question. And remember, it happens when your awareness is settled, when you're calm, when you're still, when like very calm. This is when it happens. It's like you build that coherence field first within you, and from there you open the heart. If you're in the excited state, you're too much in the intellectual space, and intellectual space has a lot of programming, like how the brain tries to decode this in a sequence of frequencies that make words that you cannot decipher. So bypass it, go below that. So settle your awareness, and then you start. It starts like this. Let me know how this goes. It's good.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. Very good.
Patrick.
Christina.
Hello. So when we started doing House of Silence in your apartment, I started seeing these tall beings of light, and now when I do healing, whenever I do any hands-on healing or distance healing, they appear. And they're doing healing with me. I always feel that there's more hands than just my own.
Yes.
And so who are they? And again, how do I begin to communicate more intentionally? I imagine it's a little bit of the same.
Yes, there are two types. There are two types. One is the tribe, one is, you could say, the assist. What is the word in English? Assistance. Now, there are two types that come. Why? Because you opens the door, you invite it. That's how it works. So in the healing process, when you have these tall light beings, there's a way to recognize your tribe, or is this friends, higher dimensional friends that come and assist in the healing process. When that happens, when you begin to be aware of them, again, similar to Ruth's question, again, this is starting with the stillness of awareness, with this silence, and from there, from your heart, you have to begin the connection from your heart. It's not working in other ways, only from there, because that element is that which has the capacity to pierce into the subtle realm. It's your door, you could say. Heart, the door. So from there, you reach out. How? Love and embrace, but also surrender. This is important, surrender. The higher developed the beings, the more the language of surrender and its flavors they talk. or communicate in. It's like a channel. It's a frequency channel. So you have to have, and you have to truly feel or mean it. Surrender. And then the door opens, the flood comes of communication. What communication? First, reach out. It's like in that surrender, encoded within, is like my tribe or friend, or beloved friend, you could say. My tribe or beloved friend. You will instantly get the answer. Why? In telepathic communication, where is time? Where is time? It's not sequence, like with 3D language. 3D language greatly slows down the process of communication, and that's okay for, let's say, species early in their developments. But we are entering, we are transitioning, we are phase shifting, and this is the time to go into that next step of communication. So this means reach out, form the bridge from the heart, and then have encoded in this contact my tribe or beloved friend. They will instantly tell you what it is, because both of them are present. Now, when you reach from either an answer, the door is open. The door is open to communicate. Does that make sense? They may not, by the way, they may not answer to everything you ask. Again, this happens when they want to protect you from getting sidetracked. Then they would not answer. But anything that they can answer, they will give you.
They feel like it's true that they feel like two very different beings. There's ones that are very tall, they just stand around and, you know, and they assist by just being present. And then there's beings that almost, I feel like their hands are working through me, and there's other hands in
The assistance. It's beautiful. And you called upon them, because we all are multidimensional beings living on all these layers. It's merely activating those layers within you. Let that sink in. You live at the same time on all the layers. It's merely to activate those layers to assist. That's all. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And it's very blissful, the communication then. And they will be very happy. They will say, finally.
Thank you, Patrick.
Nice. Now that brings me to one additional thing, and that is, these are examples of beginnings of telepathic communication with other species. They can be higher dimensional, energetic, higher dimensional, light beings, but they can also be physical. Now, when they are physical, they might appear to you as non-physical, because this is their mode of transportation. They come from somewhere, and then they choose to go into an astral type of fields for the sake of transportation, for the sake of coming. And then they might not fully materialize in here into 3D. And then to your perception, they appear as non-material beings, but they just use this form of transportation, and they might be still physical beings. So that is also an aspect to consider. Some species are living in the 3D universe, but are highly developed. And they have mastered that form of transportation. They can freely go into other high-dimensional space, for the sake of transportation and come back. So it's good to know that, and you will get the sense with what you deal. Is it really truly light being, or is it the other form that appears temporarily from into towards you in non-material form because of their transportation? They have not fully materialized into here. You will, over time, you will know what is what. Does that make sense? Now you can see why we have for some time encouraged also animal communication, because it will assist you in developing that skill of telepathic communication that you can develop further to communicate with higher forms of life. It's a beautiful thing. It's just merely beginning to use your inborn higher senses. Your inborn higher senses that nobody normally teaches, neither parents, neither society, neither school. But this is a time of transitioning, so we have to move in that direction. And that is coming. That is part of your own growth also. It's the next, you could say the next step that is actually now happening. It's the next, but it's now. Right.
And also,
Yes? Caroline.
yes, we have sound problems here.
We hear you.
Now, when I was 11, I dreamt a lot of times from, I don't know what, there was something for me, it was, I was little like a dragon, and they want to take me to somewhere, but I was very afraid. It was scary for me, and I had the feeling if I was dying or I lost myself, and so I told them to leave me alone, and so I have no further dreams. And last year I say, okay, now I'm grown up, perhaps it's something else, and I say, okay, you may come if you want to. And they always come in my dreams, and really the next evening they come, but it was scary too. It was also the feeling like dying, and that I lost myself. So I told them that I don't want to contact with them, and so this is finished, this thing. What do you mean with that?
This is it's very interesting. It's opening another thing from the perspective of the ETs. They will say, "Oh my God, we have seen this a million times." They are all afraid. It's like they want to connect again for the same reason, not to fully forget that the human, that the light being that has incarnated as a human doesn't fully forget. So they try to knock at the door, you could say. And the human says, leave me alone. I don't want to have anything to do with this. Why? There's fear. It's like, there is fear of losing identity of what? The newly gained identity of the experience of a human. It's like, finally, I have this human form that I call Caroline. Now I want to experience him. And now they knock at the door, and I don't know what this is, but I don't want to go there because now I'm busy with this Caroline. So ETs will say, we have seen that 1,000,000 times, and they have to wait and wait and wait till it's the right time. Then they try again. No, it's still too early. Okay, let's wait. It goes like this. Now, that is why from our side as humans, it is good to understand the phenomenon of consciousness, because what is dying? You can't possibly die. You can only change clothes. Clothes of what? The form of Karoli. But you continue. And Karoli's form, that energetic pattern dissolves. It's just an energy pattern that dissolves, that maintains the mind-body structure identification of Karoli, the human vessel. And the human vessel says, I'm Karoli. It's the mind-body formation, there's a pattern, there's an energy signature. Now, when that dissolves, you still exist. You still exist, it continues, you're eternal. So, dying is a non-option. Only change exists. So, that's one thing. The other is losing myself towards my bigger existence. It's a bit like a computer game. We should not compare too much with computer games or simulation, but there are some analogies that can be useful, and that is, Karoli is like an avatar in a computer game. Literally so. So you play that avatar, but whatever, vegetable seller or whatever out there, we experienced that 1,000,000 times here in El Salvador. But you have this experience right now. Now, here's an advice to you. If it comes back, if this experience, if let's say knocking at the door happens again, if this happens, this time reach out with your heart. First, embrace. Go and use this universal greeting code. Reach out from your heart, form the bridge, embrace, and embrace with love, and take it from there, and then feel out what happens. The fear that is there was merely a reaction to the unknown. That fear potential was already sitting in the human body. That brings me to another thing. I did mention the experience of handling one's own consciousness, the stillness, is a direct eliminator of fear, because you experience that which cannot die. That's a biggie. That's a biggie. It's like you take away something, and that is the fear. That will help you not to get drowned in that vibration of fear when the unknown, in this case, that thing appears. Now, here's the thing. Heart knows. Heart totally knows. So if you do that embrace towards that experience, heart knows. You're invincible there. Nothing can happen. You're invincible, literally. So then the next step comes. Whatever it is, your heart will guide you. And when your heart says, it's enough for today, or it's enough, you naturally will retreat. You are always in control of the experience. Everybody needs to hear this. You are always in control of the experience. You're never a victim. Remember that. You can always retreat. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
So try that next time.
Okay, I will. Thank you, Patrick.
They are quite humorous, actually. You will discover.
Not mine.
Yours will be quite humorous, you will see.
I hope so.
You have to pierce through that wheel. You will see.
Okay.
Very good.
Hello, Patrick.
Lorena,
How are you?
very well, thank you.
Since we're talking about telepathy, I just came to my mind a dream that I had a lot of years ago. I was first at the city, in a place in a city, and then I was taken to the sea, and suddenly it came out a dolphin, a big dolphin, and I wasn't scared. I remember I wasn't scared. I was very confident. When he came out of the water, he just looked at me, and I looked at him, and we start talking. I don't remember what we talked, but we start talking, and it was an eye-to-eye contact, and I guess it was a telepathy communication.
Yes.
And then I remember he was like telling me something I could understand by telepathy, but I don't remember what really the message was. But it had to do something that I had to help people. That's the only thing I help people.
Yes.
That's the only thing idea I remember.
Yes. Now, this is your tribe. It's beautiful. It's not from here. They did not come from here originally. You never lost the contact. So what you do is, even the dog confirms. So, so what you do is this. What you do is this. You can try this before you fall asleep. If you lay in bed, you have your hands at the heart. That helps you to focus on that. So next is open the heart and recall that moment where you meet with this dolphin, because that dolphin is always there.
Okay.
Anytime you want, he's there. So connect. But how, as we mentioned before, form the bridge. It's love. It's this kind of beautiful love. You mean it unconditional, the universal greeting. Connect. Even surrender. And the dolphin will become active. And you have opened the door for communication. And you ask, it's like the intent or it's a feeling in it to help. It's like feeling that he should help you to enliven further the memory as to what shape of help this has to be. Because now you are ready. Now you are ready for the question, not before.
Okay.
So you can do that.
Okay.
First is, though, the greeting. Never leave that out. It's not functioning otherwise. Because all of this is shared through love. That's the higher form of communication. It's the code, you could say the etiquette of that type of telepathy.
Okay.
It's the universal etiquette. That's a good word. It's a universal etiquette of that language. That is what you do. And in fact, the humans have had that originally. The humans had that originally in their greeting code. When they greet somebody, may God be with you. It's just coming through some kind of, you could say, coloring. It shifted more towards the head. But this form, may God be with you. If you really go and dig to the bottom of this, it's unconditional love, this universal flow. That's all. That is a bridge. but you have to mean it, and then the door opens. Let me know how this goes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
It never left. The dolphin never left. It's
I know,
beautiful.
I feel it sometimes.
Yes,
Thank you, Patrick.
it's very emotional. This dolphin. It's beautiful. Very nice. Maybe if somebody still has a question, maybe the last one. I don't want to take time away from you too much.
Now I can speak. We have a sound problem here, so just a second. Because we have to,
It's an echo.
yeah, we have to push this up.
Put
We have to sound over the Natel, so that's
I
we
see.
always have to turn it off and on. So
Yes.
that's a problem. I just wanted to share something. Can you see the dolphin?
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah, just because of the dolphin, you know.
Beautiful. Thank you
A
for
company
sharing.
for me for many years, dolphins. So, but that's not what I wanted to tell. What I wanted to tell is, I think I have some Syrians that are working with me since about a year, and actually it started when I did Sacred Crystal Sound. And it's really the most of the time to come when I do Sacred Crystal Sound remote, because then I can see them, also the ones that are with my clients. Before I couldn't see them, so now I can see them because I stay in the room. And these really are very high light, like light people. And I think those are serious. They didn't tell me, but I can feel it. And so I'm really connected to them. I just let them in and do their work. So that's really very, very nice. And it doesn't scares me at all, because they really do help. They do a lot of my job actually, and that's very nice. So they don't come when I do remote with the animals, because that's different. That's really different. They only come when with the humans. So that's what I wanted to share. And sometimes there are several. Sometimes there's only one, and I have always one in my back who's working with me during the Sacred Crystal Sound sessions. So it's not scary at all for me. That's what I wanted to share.
Different groupings of Syrians. Different groupings of Syrians are there. You have been active. If we sequentialize it just for the sake of the human mind, you have been active in many places in this quadrant of this, what is this, galaxy? So it's a mix of friends and tribe that you have called upon, and they are present. But if ever you wish to know more, you do exactly the same procedure as was mentioned before to Christina. You do the same procedure, and you can gain more information. And this thing with the dolphins that you have, that is your, that is, you should actually talk more with Lorena about that. I think you should have a separate connection once exchange and see what comes. So you can separately, if you both wish that, you can separately exchange information, maybe have once a chat with each other just to see that common ground with the dolphins. There is something there. So if both of you wish, you can leave to each other in the separate chat of this Zoom. You could leave perhaps the email address or something. And if you wish that, then you could start communication. That might be a nice thing to do. Dolphin, there is something that goes deep into home. That's the point. Yes. Aha. There is Valentina. Hello. Yes. So does that make sense? Felicitas? All right.
Yes. Yes, thank you.
There is one thing that needs to be stated here that just came up. Everybody has in their energy field codes, because you are not just physical here, there's also the subtle aspect. You are energy being. All of it is there. You could say that on one hand, there is a code that denotes with your physical expression. It's like an address. It's like a cosmic address. You are a human being on Earth, on this solar system, in this arm of the galaxy, in this galaxy. It's like a postal address. That code sits there, and this could be explained how this works. But that's one thing. But there's also other codes in it. Other codes that you could say are nuggets of memory fields that connect you with what you have been doing besides having a human body, let's say. You wear many dresses potentially. So now you wear the dress of a human body experience, but you have other dresses. It sits also there. So this is how you can access your tribe. You can access these types of memories too. And through that code, your tribe can find you. It's through that code. At least the ones that are living or are, let's say, at home in higher dimensional space, they will find you through the dimensions because of that code. It's an energy patterns, like a signature that sits in your field. It's like, you could almost say, in other words, soul signature. They find you. It's like this. So that was one more thing that needed to be stated. Yes, so this was very exciting. This was very nice. And originally, I did not know how this will unfold, how we do this here through the night. That the downstreams happened. And yet I didn't know exactly in detail how much I will talk on this. But it seems this was very good. It was, I'm sure one or the other could be very much helped with this. And if this is something that everybody is really benefiting from, we could do this at another time. And maybe we look again into the experiences that some of you have. Maybe you have questions about this. Maybe not everybody could ask now the questions that they would have liked to ask. and then we could take it from there. So this could be a useful thing, and I'm sure others who will hear or see this recording now, they might resonate with one or the other experiences that some of you have brought out, and would then like to join the next time. So this is having the function of helping more people than actually are present in this moment in the call. So if that is all right with everybody, we'll leave it at that. Is that okay? So Cindy, if I was thinking, if everybody,
Sí, otra reunión.
if everybody wants to do another thing like this, maybe one can do that in a month's time or so, and maybe you could announce it. Well, how did we do that now? How should we do this?
Do you want to do it like spontaneously?
Well, we should have a time so everybody can plan for it, but how do people communicate? Like, I think this time, like the Saturday in Europe, it would be in the evening. In the US continent, it would be morning. It's actually quite okay like this. And we could choose another Saturday, maybe in a month, more or less a month's time. And but how do we tell everybody? We don't have the emails of everyone.
No, but you do.
Do I?
I hope so.
So
Not?
I don't know who is actually connected right now. So, but what we can do is this. I will disseminate it to the ones I have already communicated right now. And then that's from my side. There are others that came in from other sides through friends. So those friends should then tell them, hey, the next one is coming in a month or whatever. We do it like this then, because I don't see everyone who is connected there, because they come from other environments, like somebody has a friend and then he told the friend and then I don't know that friend, like this. So we do it like this. We do it as we did now. I will announce it. We sort this out when we can do. We announce the date, and then everybody who has heard of it, if they had brought in last time the friends, they can tell them, look, they do another round, and then this is how we set it up. Again, with the Zoom, we could do it like this.
Yeah. So do you want to do it like on the last Saturday of a month?
Let me see. What is
Because we are almost towards the end of April. If we say like the last Saturday of a certain month at 6 p.m. CET.
Okay, that would be a good thing.
Yeah.
And what date is that? Is that May?
Yeah.
So what is that? Last Saturday, 30th May. 30.
Yeah.
Let's fix it then. If everyone hears this, you know it already. The ones who are connected. 30th of May. Same time again. That means Europe, Central Europe is 6 p.m. That would be noontime New York, the East Coast. El Salvador, it would be 10 o'clock. Then in the US, somewhere Colorado might be the same time, like this. So that everybody knows that's the time next time. And we will confirm. And then we send out the code. And then we just do it again and then see what comes. This would be interesting. All right then, so thank you very much everybody. It was very nice to see everyone. And let's see where it takes us the next time.